Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast. I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsors for their support. This episode of the Show Up Dad is brought to you by Tallman Equipment, a trusted provider of top-notch tools and equipment for the powerline industry. Visit tallmanequipment.com to explore their catalog and discover how their reliable tools can assist you in your projects. I also want to give a shout out to the Show Up Dad Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting fathers in their journey to show up for their families. Through workshops, resources, and supportive community, the Show Up Dad Foundation empowers dads to show up, be present, and make a positive impact on their children's lives. Learn more at theshowupdadfoundation.org. Now let's dive into today's conversation with our guest, Nate Renneke. Nate is a devoted husband to his wife, Brittany, and together they've been navigating the joys and challenges of raising their two boys since 2015. Nate is passionate about helping fathers and husbands be the best they can be. He has dedicated his time to topics like fitness, home improvement, budgeting, and more. Nate's unique perspective and experiences make him a valuable resource for anyone seeking guidance on fatherhood and personal growth. In today's episode, we have an insightful discussion lined up. Nate will be sharing his expertise on a topic that hits close to home for many of us. When are you enough financially? This conversation will provide our listeners with a more expansive view of what financial freedom truly entails and help them gain a deeper understanding of their own financial goals. So without further ado, let's welcome Nate Renneke to the show. Welcome, Nate.
Hi, David. Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I want to open up first and foremost, brother, with a quick question to you. What is a financial goal you have for yourself or your family, and why is it important to you, brother?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I have a lot of financial goals. I kind of like to put it into two buckets. There's short-term financial goals. That'd be like vacations and cars and stuff. I don't get too caught up in that. Not really a car person, but, vacations are nice. And then there's the long-term ones. It's like, do you want to send your children to college or even just any type of trade school and be able to pay for that, and then retirement. So retirement's one of those things that I think, at least maybe my generation, we see our parents and they are not prepared for retirement. So it's kind of one of those ones that it's been on my mind a lot. Either your parents have done really well and you want to follow in their footsteps, or maybe they didn't do so well, so you want to kind of right that wrong. So retirement's a big one for me. And I think in today's episode, we're going to get a little bit deeper about how my view of retirement has shifted over the last decade, helping people. I'm a financial advisor for physicians. I know a lot of your listeners probably make just as much as physicians. So, how do you prepare for retirement and this long-term goal of being able to stop working and enjoy time with your grandchildren, and do that without any worries about money? So you're sort of set. And what does that mean? That goal is very important to me, but it's important for a different reason, I think, than when I first started in this industry.
Well, let's talk about your upbringing, brother. What makes you roll? Who are you about?
Sure. Yeah. Cool. So I'm like I said, financial advisor. I work at Physician Family. So we serve about close to 200 families. Almost maybe 150% of that is doctors. So maybe like 300 doctors. And I was raised by a financial advisor. So I came into this industry knowing all about it, went to school for it, got my economics degree. And I came into this industry caring a whole lot about money. I wanted to make a ton of money. I wanted to help people do the right thing with money. I was listening to Dave Ramsey in high school.
Yeah.
So I cared a lot about it. But taking a step back from that, I grew up in a house where my parents split pretty early, but it didn't really affect me, I think, in the ways that I see a lot of other people be affected by split parents. I got a lot of love and attention from my parents. My mom was a very successful administrator in a big school district. My dad was a financial advisor, although he laid bricks before that. So I got to watch him go from bricklayer to financial advisor, which is an interesting transformation to see.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated school, I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps, and I didn't think anything was wrong with pursuing that because my dad did a pretty good job of giving me attention and
Hmm.
also pursuing his business pretty aggressively. And so when I got into the industry, um, I kind of had these grand ideas that I would make all this money and still be able to give time to everybody around me, including
Yeah.
my family. And essentially, I was wrong. It's very difficult to attempt to build a business or attempt to build a book of business, um, and still be present for your family. So I realized early on. So I had these big ideas for making money. So that's why I'm in the industry,
Yeah.
and I had a passion for the industry. But then after taking some advice from men at church, reading a bunch of books, I realized that money really wasn't all that important.
Hmm.
It is important to an extent, but pursuing money to the extent that I was pursuing it was detrimental to the family. Um,
Mm.
I I met my wife right as I was getting out of college, and we got married pretty fast. And when I started to ask her about what she wanted in life, I realized that leading a family was going to take a lot more than money.
Yeah.
It was going to take. They needed somebody passionate about following the values in the house,
Hmm.
and the industry I was in did not align with my values. So they sold things that weren't any good for anybody just to make money.
Hmm.
It was just a glorified salesperson. That's all it was. You weren't really helping. You were,
Yeah.
sometimes you were helping, but a lot of the people in the industry were pushing you to sell things that just didn't make any sense. So, realizing that and
Hmm.
realizing that I wanted to be an example for my family and to follow my own values and the
Hmm.
values I hope to bring up my children with, I left the industry. So I left the industry, went and got some job here in Portland, Oregon, in this big Fortune 500 company. And a couple years later, I found where I'm at now that essentially allowed me to do what I was really passionate about in a
Hmm.
trustworthy way, which is another value I want my kids to follow. I want them to be trustworthy.
Hmm.
Um, and so we charge like a monthly subscription fee, and I get to be who I am. I get to tell them all the things that are true about money rather than feeding them a sales pitch.
Mm.
So this job is perfectly in tune with my life. It allows me to give a ton of energy at work, be really productive here, and feel really proud of what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Uh, but what comes with that is working at a place that allows you to be who you are. If they're hiring a dad, you get to be a dad too.
Yeah.
And so it was really important to me to find a job that allowed me to be the dad I needed to be, or I wanted to be, and be the husband I wanted to be.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at today.
How has that affected your dynamic now that you're in a position to where they value family, right?
Hmm.
And how has that affected your family now that you found a career or a job, like you said, to be able that recognizes family
Yeah.
and the importance of that?
Yeah. It's hard to be called physician family if you don't value family, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they do that really well. I think at work,
Hmm.
uh, the interesting thing is, I think a lot of people, when they want a job that values family, they think of sort of a flexible job that sort of willy nilly. Uh, I don't believe in that. I mean, I believe in flexibility, but I
Yeah.
don't believe in finding a job that basically is easy,
Hmm.
just so you can be home more. I believe in a job or in being at a firm that expects you to give your all at the
Mm.
time that you're at work and leaves you alone when you're at home. Yeah.
Yes.
So that at work has been great because when you're young, you waste a lot of time, to be honest. And
Hmm.
when you realize, hey, if I want to make strides at work and I want to earn a great income, I'm not saying there's nothing about me that says I don't want to earn a great income.
Hmm.
But if you want to do that and show up at home, be a great spouse, be a great dad. You have to give your attention and focus while you're at work so that you can give your attention and focus to your family when you're home. And so that's been great for work. In fact, I'm probably more productive than when I was younger and doing whatever during the 50 hours a week I was working. But at home, it just gives everybody peace. Like, dad is going to be here. He's going to be home at this time, and he's going to be around. He's not going to be working late nights on weekends, and I have young friends, especially at my church, that they, probably workaholics, and they believe wholeheartedly that they should be working their fingers to the bone. And I try to talk to them all the time. They view it as like, if you're not working like a madman, you're not trying hard enough. And I view it as, if you don't run a business that you can put in 50, 60 hours a week and that not be enough, you have problems. You should get more creative, and you should also probably be more focused while you're at work. There's only so much energy you can give to work before you're worthless.
Yeah.
And
no, really.
Yeah. So that has allowed me to just my perspective change from working here. And shout out to our leader here, Ben Utley, who owns the company. He lives this. I mean, he works very hard, and he was also there for his family his whole life. In fact, he chose to throttle down the growth of this company while he was raising his daughters. So it has set the tone at home. When dad's at work, he's at work, and obviously if you need me, I'll be there. But it also sets the tone for me. Like, I need to be available when I'm at home. I need to be there with my family, giving them the time and energy they deserve for letting me be at work for 50 hours a week.
And I'm glad you said that, because that is exactly what embodies the Show Up Dad. Be where your feet are. That's a slogan that we have coined. And man, it's the absolute truth. I'm glad you said it, right? And put it in your words, because it's absolutely true. I never looked at it in that perspective. When you give 100%, you're all at work. You leave that at work, you're gonna be able to focus on your family, right? When you're too busy focusing on your family when you're at work, and vice versa, you're not giving anything at all. You're right. You're giving your 80%, 70%, whatever it may be. So when you're focused at home, you're going to get more production done. More stuff's going to be done at work. I mean, and then you can come home and relax and enjoy your family.
That's right. That's right.
Man, what an interesting perspective, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, in the line industry, the industry that I grew up with, the industry that I serve now as our ministry serves them, that's something that we see a lot of. We got guys who are working 80 to 90 hours, if not more, a week, trying to get ahead, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on here, is to kind of paint this picture and bring value and insight to our audience about when is it enough?
Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, brother, what does it mean actually to be enough financially as a husband and father?
Yeah. This is a tough question. And I have wrestled with it a lot. So first of all, making money is a difficult concept to wrap your head around, because you have to make money. Everyone has to make money. And, especially in my faith, and you're reading in the Bible, talks about the pursuit of money and how that can really hurt you in your life. But what's difficult, it's one of those things that you have to toe the line. You still have to make money. You still have to go out there, get a job, and work hard. But then you have to stop at some point. So it's like, when do I stop? Well, obviously you got to put food on the table. And it's different for everybody, but we live in an incredibly rich country. So how
Mm-hmm.
much is actually enough to survive is it's bloated in this country. Like we could make a lot less than we actually do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's getting real with the idea that a simple life without a ton of money is perfectly reasonable for your children and your family.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not a very sexy way to talk about this. Nobody wants to just they don't think they want to live a simple life and not make a whole lot of money. And we're not
Mm-hmm.
talking to people who don't make a whole lot of money, right? We're not, linemen make a ton of money. Doctors
Yeah.
who I serve, they make a ton of money. So for those people, they make plenty of money to feed their family, clothe their family, put a roof over their head, have safe cars to drive. They make plenty of money for all that. So the question is, when is it enough? Well, um, I talked at the top of this podcast about uh, basically setting goals.
Mm-hmm.
You have to set short-term goals. That makes it so you don't go into debt, let's say.
Okay.
But beyond short-term goals, like you're paying cash for cars, you're paying cash for vacations, paying cash for as much as you possibly can. Beyond that, so what more do you need other than paying for cash for everything, living a reasonable life with your family? Well, you need long-term goals. You need to, let's say you want to pay for college, or let's say you want to pay for trade school. You should save for that. And there's great ways to do so. So you
Mm-hmm.
can save taxes by saving that money. There's lots of good strategies to do that. And then you have to retire someday, especially for your audience. I mean, their body's going to give out on them at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do saving. And so the question is, how much do I need to save? Well, there's no substitute for a plan. You have to have a plan for when you're going to stop working and how much you need to save to get there, where you're going to save your money to achieve that goal. And so let's just imagine you make $400,000 a year
Mm-hmm.
and you're spending let's call it $10,000 a month on your family. Okay. That's a number that we came to. I don't know how much, you're in California, right, David?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's more than that, more than that, California, but let's say it's 10 grand a month, and you're bringing home after taxes $25,000 a month. So in order to retire, before your body gives out, you're probably going to have to save somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $100,000 a year if you want to have a good retirement and you want to be able to continue spending 10 grand a month and you want to
Mm-hmm.
send your kids to some sort of education. So what's left? Well, there's about 10 grand left a month, right? Because you're saving a lot of that on pre-tax basis. So the question would be, what should I do with this $10,000?
Hmm.
And everywhere you turn, if you're looking online, if you're talking to your friends, they are going to tell you to double down, invest the money, work more, make more. And I think that is totally just flat out wrong.
Okay.
Okay. And this is why I left the industry in the first place. When you're, as a financial advisor, when you're looking to gather assets, the answer to what do I do with my extra money is you invest it so I can make more money as your financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
The right answer would be something along the lines of, well, can we dream a little bit bigger with some of these things without going overboard? Can we take a little bit of a nicer vacation? Maybe we can have a little bit of a nicer car. But at some point, you just have more money than you can spend or save. And you have achieved enough. You have
Mm-hmm.
enough money. So I was talking to a physician over on the East Coast, and he made 400. He was switching jobs to make 600.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me what I thought about that. And I thought, well, 600. Yeah, sure. Switch jobs, make an extra 200 grand a year. Sounds great. He called me back 3 days later and said, hey, I think I can make 500 and not work on Fridays. Now, most people look at that opportunity and say, would you work Fridays for an extra $100,000 a year? Most people would say yes. But most people don't make $600,000 a year. Most people don't make $200,000 a year. So for that person, It's easy to say you should work Fridays. It's easy for your listeners as linemen to say you should work more. But he said, when he asked me that, I thought that is the best way I could imagine you spending $100,000 a year, having another day with your family while your children are young,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because experiences with dad, they are so short. If dad is working 80 hours a week, when do you see him? And how do you instill values into your children? We
Mm-hmm.
all have this dream that at 50 years old, we're going to retire early and pay for vacations for the whole family. Nobody wants to go on vacation with a dad they don't know.
Ooh, that's deep.
That's the truth. I see it
Yeah.
all the time. And
Mm.
these big goals you have for finances, buying lake houses, or whatever it may be, ask your kids if they would rather have a Nerf gun battle at 6 p.m. or go to a lake house once a year. I promise you, your boys, my boys, would rather have a Nerf gun battle at 6 p.m. every day.
Oh yeah.
Right? I promise
Yep.
you. I pick up my son, Mateo, from kindergarten every day, and I try at least 3 times a week. On the way home, there's like a pond on the way to the car,
Mm-hmm.
and we look for frogs. There's no frogs in there. It's a pond, but we look for frogs. And he talks about that every single day. And I got about a week's worth of remembering the Disneyland trip we went on 2 years ago.
Mm.
Like that time that you give with him, that 10 minutes, I see it change his whole day. He doesn't want to go because we have someone help watch the kids. I
Yeah.
bring him home. There's a nanny there. He doesn't want to go see the nanny. He wants to spend time with dad. And that 10 minutes changes his whole perspective. His whole day has changed because I spent 10 minutes with him at the pond.
And it's those little things that captivate them.
They're huge. The little
Yeah.
things are everything.
Man, I even seen it with my sons, something as simple as playing Legos with them for 5 minutes. Just
Mhm.
giving them that 5 minutes of my time just
Mhm.
to lay down on the ground and make the noises and
Yep.
playing Army Man or whatever it may be. Man, it just lights up their day. It fills their box that
It
they have,
totally
right?
does.
Mm.
Yeah, that and every child is different.
Mm-hmm.
My son sounds like yours. Legos, Nerf guns, pawns.
Yep.
My other one, he's a little younger, and he likes to play. He likes to play independently a lot. What he wants is at the end of the night just for read a book or just sit with him.
Mm.
And you just feel like, as a dad, I just got off work where I was trying to be the most productive human being I could possibly be. Now I'm just sitting there wasting time. It's far from a waste of time. He's getting
Yeah.
filled up in his own way, and same goes for your spouse. So when you're thinking about how much is enough, sit down with your spouse and ask them, like, hey, do you value me being home for dinner? Do you value me being present with the kids? Like, what should I be aiming for here? And in every single family I speak with, the non-financial spouse, or the one who maybe isn't working, or not contributing as much, they're
Mm-hmm.
contributing at home a whole lot more. It's an emphatic yes. I want you home for dinner. I want you home on weekends. And if you ask them, would you rather me make 300,000 or 400,000, but I'm home for dinner? They would say, I want you home for dinner. I promise you, I've seen it. I've seen it too many times. And you retire early, you achieve the dream. My fingers are up in quotes for
Yeah.
people listening. If you don't have an experience, a lifetime of experiences with your spouse and your kids, it'll be a boring 55. At 55, it'll be a boring life.
Mm-hmm.
You won't know what to do with yourself.
Man, and I can't agree with you more, Nate, because that was one of the big arguments that my wife had for me. She's like, man, I don't care about a big house, fancy cars, any of that stuff. She's like, I want you,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
And unfortunately for too many men, that never comes around because, when they stop complaining, they've already checked out.
It's over. Yeah. My
Mm-hmm.
dad, for years, has helped, because he went through his own divorce, has helped men who are going through divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that time and time again, like, women and men are very different. And
Mm-hmm.
when a woman decides, many times when they decide it's over, it is over.
Yeah.
And look, this is how I live my life. Okay. Take it or leave it. But it is my responsibility to keep up with my wife and make sure that her feelings and needs are met. So I'm constantly checking in with her. Hey, like, how are things going? Am I carrying my weight with the boys? Like, what's working for you and what's not? And what changed last year is I pick up my son from kindergarten. She was doing all the pickups. And she's a professional too. Just because
Mhm.
she's mom doesn't mean she doesn't have a job to do. And the dynamics totally changed. I mean, she had more energy. So when I was off work, she had more energy to give me as well. It's a reciprocation all the way around. You know, your
Mhm.
kids are acting out. All of a sudden, dad's around more, and that just goes away.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a drill sergeant. You just have to be there. So I strongly believe in checking in with your spouse. And maybe, David, you and I are lucky. My wife
Mhm.
doesn't need the big house either.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you married someone who has expensive taste, I don't know. Maybe you can work more. That's just not what I see.
Yeah. No, I agree with you too. I'm very fortunate to have a wife that, she just wants me thinking about her, you know
Hmm.
what I mean, and her needs and it's quality time, right? There's a
Yes,
great book out there, the Five Love
I've
Languages,
read it.
and man, that makes a difference. Even
Yep.
with our children, one thing that I heard you say, you talked about how your sons were different,
Hmm.
and one liked quality time, just sitting there reading with you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's good to be able to have that knowledge so we can fill our children and our spouses' cups in that area, because that leads to a lot of confusion later on, especially when, say, for instance, me being one of my big deals is not quality time, but it's acts of service.
Hmm.
I show my love by doing things for my wife, like cleaning the house, fixing the fence, painting, whatever.
Yep.
That's my love language, but that's not her love language. So when
Exactly.
I'm pouring into her that way, she's not receiving it, then I get frustrated and confused because it's like, man, I'm telling you I love you, but you're telling me I'm not loving you.
Yep.
What I'm saying?
That part of the book is probably the most profound to me. I think everybody kind of knows, hey, I need to give my wife something. I need to do something for her, or give her a gift, which presents is one of them, or I need to give her quality time. The key is that everybody wants to do what you did, and I did this too, which is
Mm-hmm.
or give what you want to be given.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the case. That is the profound part of the book. A lot of men hear that book and they think, oh my gosh, I'm not reading that. I'm like, you need to understand what your wife's love language is. I promise your life will be easier. I promise, by the way, you'll be able to focus more at work. Because if
Mm-hmm.
everything is just tidied up at home, your level of enthusiasm at work and your focus at work just skyrockets. You can do
Mm-hmm.
more in 50 hours than you used to do in 70 when you worried about what was happening at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is, we are called as men to lead a house and work really hard. So how do you do it? That's the question. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you need to keep your house in order, and that means you have to be around. That means you need to understand your spouse and understand your kids. And again, getting back to money, they don't need this money. They don't need any more than what you're providing them. Everyone listening to this show makes plenty of money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to not, I mean, look, money can buy you a lot of great things and it can buy security in your life, but finding out what is enough is identifying your goals so that you can put the rest of your time and energy into your family, which is going to give you happiness. Money just simply won't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, everybody, especially young people, when I talk to them about this, they can't wrap their heads around it. It seems to be the one thing that nobody wants to listen to wisdom about. They can hear people who have made a lot of money say, hey, it's not everything, but they want to find out for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that one thing. And I'm telling you, I took this advice early on. You know, I'm in my mid 30s and I've been thinking about money since I wrote a business plan in a coloring book when I was 10. And I took this advice very early on, and it has changed my whole perspective on my life at home and also my work.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a life where you have a balanced life. You spend time at home. Rather than your house and everybody in your house sucking energy from you, they give you energy because they're all happy,
Mm-hmm.
right? You show up home to happy kids because they see dad every day. a happy wife or a happy spouse because they are taken care of, not just financially, emotionally, spiritually. They're taken care of. And when that happens, you want to be home. Oh, all too often, I see guys, they go to work. It is an escape.
Yes.
Work is easier than being at home. And that is a problem.
Yeah.
Your life at home, it's not easy. It's definitely harder than work. But it should take energy from you, but it should also fill you up.
And it's so true, Nate, because I've had guys actually tell me, Dave, I don't even want to go home because I don't know how to be a dad. I don't know how to be a husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what he told me is that he's like, David, he's like, if I was to go home, I've been out of state for 4 years, 5 years. He's like, I wouldn't even know how to act being there. Every time I go home, it is so foreign to me. And that blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
So,
is
no, it's absolutely, you know?
that is, it's sad to hear.
Mhm.
But okay, very sad. And I think that you have to get real with yourself and start to understand where your limitations are, which, by the way, there is endless knowledge out there to fill those gaps. How to act at home. Look, nobody knows how to act at home. You're just starting from square one. Nobody knows how to be a husband the first day on the job, right? I mean, nobody knows how to be a dad. You're just a little late to the game. So believe me, there's books and there's so much information out there. But I think you have to get real with yourself and start to understand if you want to be there. And if you don't want to be there, there is a problem. And the answer isn't to run away. The answer isn't to get everyone to accept that you want to be on the job all the time. That's not a fulfilling life. It'll end so quickly. I mean, it's a dangerous job, the people you're speaking to. Could end at the snap of your fingers and you're forced to be at home. Right? So, by the way, I got some books that I want to say because I can't help myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It. Great book. It talks about when your spouse. So men inherently, it's like built into them that the feeling they usually feel is shame. They feel shame, and women inherently feel fear. So, like, you're driving the car with your wife, and you make a little jerk, or you slam on your brakes, and she yells at you, and you immediately, from being yelled at, you feel shame. So you say, like, what? You think I don't know how to drive? I've been driving for 20 years. Like, what are you talking about? What do you think happened? This what I used to say to my spouse before I read this book. What do you think I do when you're not in the car? Think I'm just getting in wrecks all the time? Relax. Right? So I feel shame, so I'm defending my shame to her. But if you realize that she's not mad at you, no matter what she says, she just experienced fear.
Yeah.
That spreads for everything, not just in the car. Your spouse, if they're hard to deal with because you're gone all the time, they're fearful that about something. They're fearful that you won't be around, that you might leave, that their kids aren't going to grow up the way she expected. There's some fear in there that you have a responsibility to get to the bottom of.
Yeah.
Right. And the shame that the people you're talking to feel about being gone all the time, they need to get to the bottom of that too. And come to an agreement on how this house is going to operate. Because obviously, I mean, there's some logistical issues with the job. I mean, it's hard. So it might be different than the life I'm talking about, being home at 6 p.m. every day, but what's going to work for your family?
Yeah.
So that one. And then as far as a parenting book, Parenting with Love and Logic is a great one. It essentially, it can kickstart someone who doesn't feel like they know how to be a dad, but wants to give boundaries to their kids when they're home. The gist of the book is you give your children options and you let them live with the real world consequences of those options. Now, so you still have a framework for them to live inside of, but either option, they're going to have to live with the consequence of it. That teaches them what it is like in the real world. You can give them some boundaries while they're young. And then it also lets you understand you're not in control of your child's life.
Yes.
They are in control. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow, especially when they come back. Let's say they're gone for a long time, they're working a lot, and they
Mm-hmm.
come back and they want control. That's not how this is going to fly.
Mm-mm.
It just doesn't work like that. They're human beings. So
Exactly.
if that person is listening, read those couple of books and get down to the bottom of why maybe you're nervous to go home. Hopefully that
Mhm.
helps.
And it's our goal too. Getting back to the first book you talked about, it's our goal. It's our job as husbands, right? To, the Bible says that we are to love our spouse, right? Love
Mhm.
our wife. But a part of that love also is recognizing that she is the weaker vessel, not weaker in a sense like she's, this fragile thing or nothing like that, but being that protector, like you talked about, this fear, that's a woman's inherent uh, default, I guess, is that fear, right? That she
Mhm.
falls back to and all this stuff. And it's our job to recognize that, not take offense, and be able to help navigate her through that. Okay, so why are you afraid? You know what I mean? Let's
Mhm.
look at this. Let's look at this. I'm here. I got this. And dude, that works so much, especially like for even with my wife, right? When I'm able to come to her and comfort her and tell her,
Mhm.
hey, man, everything's going to be okay.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
if I don't have any of the answers, but just being able to comfort her in that moment where she's experiencing that fear
Mhm.
is going to yield some great results, brother.
Yeah, agreed. And you said not that they're like a delicate, fragile person. I mean, men are delicate too. They just express it in different ways. In that, like when you feel shame, a lot of our reaction is to kind of protect ourself,
Yeah.
protect our ego. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you can understand that her fear is playing off of your shame, and your response to your shame is playing off of her fear,
Mm-hmm.
like they aggravate each other, then you can be there, and they can understand where you're coming from too. I mean, like there is some shame that a lot of men feel from working too much. They
Mm-hmm.
just don't know how to deal with it, and they don't know how to say, "Hey, we're not going to be rich and famous, but I'm going to be home." And that like, what are we doing this all for? What are we
Mm-hmm.
making all this money for if we can't experience it, even the way God intended us to experience it?
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't intend for us to be extraordinarily wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the purpose of our lives. And so, if you can find your purpose with your family and all aim at that goal, your spouse is going to be on board with whatever work is required to get there,
Mm-hmm.
or your goals are going to change, which is okay
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
maybe we don't retire at 50. Maybe we retire like a normal person at 60.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, well, that's fine. It gives you longevity in life. It gives you longevity at work
Mm-hmm.
if you have good goals. But yeah, I agree. Being there for your spouse and being strong for them is
Mm-hmm.
important. And you just can't do that if you're not around.
No, you definitely don't have the influence that God has blessed you with over your
Mm-hmm.
children, right? If you're not spending time with them, they say time is influence. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have that influence, and then that that goes into even with school. I have a lot of fathers that talk to me about, oh, you need to put your kids in private schools and stuff like that. It's like, no, how about you just raise them and train them up to know the difference between right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? And have a more influential voice to them than the world is screaming at them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I'm going to break that glass even more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I went through this. So, uh, obviously, being a believer, I'm
Mm-hmm.
here in Portland, Oregon. So it's a tough go at the values that I want to raise my children with. And so I
Yeah.
asked around. I mean, every half the families I serve have their kids in private school. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, does it work? Can you throw money at this problem? Turns out you can't.
Nope.
So, what you just said, it's not an option.
Mm-hmm.
It is a requirement, no matter how much money you throw at school, that you raise your children to know what's right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided against private school, not because maybe it would solve some of the problems in the short term. Maybe they wouldn't teach certain things. They would dance around them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I talked to Ben, the owner of this firm, He said, "You're just trading problems for other problems." Like he had an example. It was like one school, the public school is teaching about something that a family he served didn't agree with. Went to the private school. It just turned to drug problems, just more expensive drugs. I mean, it's not an option. You can't throw money at your family. That you can't write a check for the real problems your family's going to have. Some of the best people we all know, they grew up extraordinarily poor, but they had a great family, and they had a great dad was around, mom was around, bunch of kids, and we're just getting away from all that. And you know, I'd like to think that it's like social media, but it's got to be more than just that. But even just social media, you get on there, and if you're not a millionaire in your 30s, you're a failure. It's so ridiculous. Your work is more than money, and your time at home is really not related that much to money. Everyone listening to this podcast can put food on the table and take care of their family. Most of the people on this podcast aren't spending enough time at home. That's the reality.
That is a reality.
Yeah, that's the harsh truth. But man, if everybody looked at their life as a long, as a marathon, and they said, "I'm going to make plenty of money. I'm going to make plenty of money, and I don't need to shave off several years at the end of my career just in the name of money. Like, I don't need to make so much money that I can retire 10 years earlier, but I get to enjoy life now." Right? I think a lot of this comes from young people's parents, like people in their 30s. Their parents didn't do great with money. That generation didn't save a whole lot of money. A lot of them went bankrupt in 2008. You know, they just didn't do great. So they are fighting against that current. They don't want to end up like their parents with broken, destitute retirement.
Yeah.
But everyone listening to this podcast, they won't if they just save enough, spend enough, and realize they are enough. The guy that you talked to, I highly doubt, with a little bit of effort and some changing of his schedule maybe, that he couldn't be a great dad. That is just, you know what you wanted out of your dad. You wanted time and attention. That's all it takes.
The crazy thing too, though, is that the same people that are complaining about what they don't like doing or complaining about their parents are doing exactly the same thing their parents, like you said, did, right? The same individual, his dad did the same thing to him. He left. He was a hard worker, never made enough, right? Because some of the hardest workers I've ever met were still some of the poorest people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they say what walks in fathers runs in sons. You know.
Yep.
So.
And you know, for me, I had such a unique situation with my dad, where the time that I was young and growing up with him, he wasn't at the peak of his career, which isn't the case for a lot of people, because you know he laid brick, and then he went back to school when my parents split. And so he had time at home. I mean, he worked a retail job until he got through school. But, you know, I was going back and forth. So the days I was at my dad's house, I was with my dad. And the days I was at my mom's house, I was with my mom. But most people, their parents are in the peak of their career when they can start remembering their experiences with them. And they will follow suit. And I did too. The difference was some self-reflection about why I wanted the things I wanted, and being really honest with people I trusted. Like really honest. I'm like, hey, I want to make obscene amounts of money. Why do I want to do that? And they're like, well, I don't know. What? Why? I have no answer. I have no answer. Like what? I don't even really, you know, what? Buy a big house for what?
Yeah.
Your kids don't care about it. I grew up in a 1,000 square foot house. I don't think anything of it. Right? They don't care. You're putting all your value, like what you value, but also the value in yourself, in money, and nobody's asking for it. So how do you combat this what you said. Essentially, someone work really hard, make good money. How do
Yeah.
you basically change your family tree? Like, instead of spending it all away, what
Yeah.
do? You unfortunately, you got to go back to basics, and you have to live a life below your means. It is as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell your family why you're doing this, hey, I know that we spend all this money on this and we spend all this money on that. I think I need to be home more. And in order for me to make less, we have to spend less. And in
Mm-hmm.
order for me to achieve my goals of being financially independent, we have to save more.
Yeah.
It is not that difficult in theory. It is just getting everybody on board. And if everybody's on board,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't that hard.
No, and it just opens up those lanes of communication. You know, I think the family is more apt when it comes from the father to sit him down and be like,
Yeah.
hey, look, this is what we're doing. You know, especially around a table, dinner table. I don't know what it is about a dinner table,
Mm-hmm.
but man, that's where a lot of we call it dinner table talk, right?
Yeah.
And when you're able to get around the dinner table, right, you talk to them, let them know, hey, man, we're gonna tighten up another notch on the belt. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And this is the end result. This is the vision I have. This is the goal we're going to achieve. We're going to achieve this as a family, man. It just gets them to buy into it.
Oh,
You know what I'm
totally.
saying?
Yeah. I recently read Making Vision Stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Andy Stanley. And that's all it is. You repeat a vision over and over again that everybody benefits from and everybody
Mm-hmm.
can get behind. People will follow you to the ends of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, have a vision for your family. I mean, you don't have to know how to do it. They can help you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we openly talk about money in my house.
Yeah.
And very strategically.
Yeah.
And my 5-year-old can, when we go buy something, he's like, well, I don't know. You know, maybe this one's cheaper. Like, he's already catching on, and he doesn't even need to. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, we're talking about a $5 burger or something. He doesn't need to get the $4 whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
he's interested, and the reason he's interested in is because I have told him that we want X, Y, and Z in our life, so
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad do a budget. That's all it took. Now all of a sudden he's got a spend, save, tithe jar. Anytime he gets money, he's putting them in all three. And I
Mm-hmm.
promise you, it won't take much more than that for them to just even be past wherever you were when you first started making money.
Mm-hmm.
My dad talked a lot about money, but nobody made me save money.
Okay.
Right? My dad talked a lot about tithing. And I have tithed every month since the day I made money.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody talked about saving. I was really into personal finance. We talked a lot about making money. So what's the thing that's hardest for me? Saving. Nobody talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to show me how to tithe. They just had to talk about it a little bit. So if you can cast a vision for your family, you
Mm-hmm.
don't really have to know how to do it. You just say, this is where I think we should go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I think we should do. And believe me, there's smart people in your house that can help you along the way. I keep thinking about this guy you brought up that says, like, I don't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have a vision.
You do. Yeah.
You have a vision for what it could be like. You just don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's material and plenty of material in your family's brains that can help you along the way.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's interesting that you brought up tithing because that's a big thing. You know what I mean? For us, we tithe every single paycheck, right? And off the 10th, off of the gross, right? No matter what. And we've been believers for about 20 years now, and I have never stopped tithing. And I tell you what, that's the first thing when people come to me and they start talking about, financial troubles and stuff like that. I let them know about tithing. And I tell them, hey, man, God is not a genie. You're not going to become a millionaire and all this other stuff, you know. So if you're praying to God, oh, I need this money wise and stuff like that, that ain't going to happen. This isn't. God is not a genie. You can't ask for stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But He does promise to meet your needs, and one of those promises is to test me in all things. Test me in this, and that's in the tithe, right? And man, ever since we've done that, we have never lacked, ever.
Mm-hmm.
You
I,
know,
I have the same exact story. Never
mm-hmm,
lacked. And, it's a tough one because it's kind of one of those things that people who are not Christians, they hear that and they
mm-hmm,
feel a certain type of way about it. So, other than what you and I believe, like
yeah,
that God will provide for us, it is not some I guess faith-based idea to say
no,
that when you give money to anything, you are now paying attention to that thing.
mm-hmm,
Okay, now that is in the Bible. I paraphrased. But if you're giving money to church, you're going to pay attention to church. And what does that do for you? It puts you around people who
mm-hmm,
understand what is enough. And it puts you around people who value the things that you should value that will release you of these feelings of not being enough.
mm-hmm,
Right. And so, even if you're having a hard time understanding how magically you're going to become rich and have a bunch of money from tithing, it's very easy to understand that if you're giving to a cause that is pushing your family in the right direction in life,
mm,
that contributing to that cause is going to bring you closer to it and going to make things really clear what you
yes,
should be doing at home. And so that is what I've experienced. And from a faith-based perspective, where I don't question this, right, whether or not I'll be provided for I've been married almost 10 years now, and since day one we've been tithing, and there has been ups and downs, and never once have we gone without. In fact, the times where we're close to going without, or where we have been close in the past, we stop and look around and we say, we're not even close. We think we have this idea that we should have all this money and extra money and stuff. We have food on the table, a house overhead, and a family in our house. Like,
mm-hmm,
we're not even, we feel like we're close, but it's just not true. This is the world talking to us about how much money we think we should have.
mm-hmm.
We have everything we need. And that has always been the case.
I found, Nate, with me, and I don't know, you probably can concur with this. The more money I make, the more I give, right? The more
Mm-hmm.
I give, it's almost like a reciprocal. It's like I believe God allows you to make money
Mm-hmm.
so you can bless others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the more I bless others with my time, with monetary, with whatever, you know what I mean, and donations, giving, whatever, right? It's almost like it's doubled back to me all the time. It comes back in some form or another, right? It's almost like it's reciprocal. And you even see that within secular groups like Oprah Winfrey talking about giving and
Yeah.
to the universe and all that stuff. They understand these concepts that are biblical.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if they can understand them and they agree with them, being secular, being people of not of the faith, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? They're tried and true. They work, you know?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. That secular part is actually how I came to go all in with giving.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seemed to me like, or not. I was always giving, but to talk about it, openly talk
Yeah.
about it. It seems to be that thing where people don't want to part with their money, so it's hard to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it just makes sense that the more generous you are,
Mm-hmm.
time, energy, money, any one of those things, it has to make sense that you're going to get time, energy, and money back.
Mm-hmm.
It's called an investment.
Yep, exactly.
And so that's what I deal with all the time. You wouldn't put money or time or energy into anything that you didn't think was going to produce good things back to you, or produce good things in the world. And
Mm.
so, as long as you believe, which I would hope, that the church you're going to is producing good things,
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you give money to that? In fact, that is much more admirable thing to give money to than just buying stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't you want, if you could actually buy mentors, great friends, people that you want your kids to grow up around,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and you could buy your values to be like projected into the world. Most people would pay for that. That's all tithing is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just one of those things that because it's tied to giving to church, people feel
Yeah.
weird about it. But I don't. It has proven to be one of the greatest ways I could give money. Just give it to church.
Absolutely. I can't agree more with you, brother. Nate, I want to ask you before we get off here, brother, what is a bit of what kind of advice can you give the couple struggling with communicating finances with each other? You know what I mean? Because I know when we get married, we bring a lot of baggage into our marriages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our children are seeing this, right? So
Yes.
when we're fighting over finances and stuff like that, can you give some advice towards that?
So first piece of advice I've already given, read How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is a book where you won't have to talk to improve your marriage. It's right in the title. Okay. But here's a second piece of advice. One, a great leader in a house is trusted. So if your wife or your husband doesn't trust you with money, there's probably a reason. That probably means you're not living a trustworthy life. Okay. Or they have a fear you need to uncover. Okay. So maybe you are trustworthy and you just can't believe that they wouldn't trust you with this, but they have some baggage like you talked about. Maybe their dad or their mom was a crazy spender and, ruined their financial future.
Yeah.
Get to the bottom of that trust, and you would need to earn it probably. And your spouse deserves that much effort for you to meet them where they're at with money. And to start earning trust, even though you may have not done something untrustworthy. But beyond that, like beyond, let's say, a ton of emotional baggage with money, I have learned that, so I keep talking about goals. You need to be on the same page as far as goals go with money. This is the biggest hurdle. It's actually not the saving. It's actually not the investing, what I get paid to do. All that stuff, you can have some do that for you, or honestly, you learn about it online, do it yourself. It's really not that complex. Okay. But the getting on the same page with goals aligns your family. You are perfectly aligned with what you're trying to do. And then once that's over, I have noticed time and time again that there's usually a non-financial spouse. So there's a financial spouse and a non-financial spouse. And this is not always the man or always the woman. I see it all the time both ways. But once you get on the same page with your goals, a lot of times you can let the financial spouse take the details from there. So my spouse is the non-financial spouse, but she's not a big spender. It doesn't mean you're a big spender. She just, honestly, she thinks money is really boring. She just doesn't care or want to talk about money. She wants to know we're secure, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Once I found out that it was boring, I thought I should stop talking about this so much. So we get on the same page with our goals. I check in with her every once in a while. Maybe once a quarter, we'll look at the budget I've been doing. But then after that, you can take, as the financial spouse, the reins and start doing what needs to be done to achieve those goals. And you just need to pull in the family and the rest of the family when when a decision needs to be made, like adjusting a goal or adjusting spending somewhere. So understand the fears that come with money in your family and get on the same page about goals, and then let whoever's good at money be good at money and leave the other person to be good at something else. Just make sure they're involved in the goal creation.
Man, what great advice, brother. Thank you so much, Nate. I appreciate you coming on here. I just want to give you this opportunity to be able to share with our audience how they can reach you or get a hold of you, if you don't mind.
Sure. So you can just find our podcast, Physician Family Financial Advisors Podcast. It's at the same place, all the podcasts are at. You probably don't have a whole lot of physicians, but if you had a question that is physician-centric, you can email us at podcast@physicianfamily.com. That's about it.
Well, right on, man. Thank you once again for your time, brother. There's some great advice you gave to our listeners, and I know this episode is going to just be able to bless those that are listening. Thank you.
Thanks, David.